All right, so just tell us your name and what your organization is.
Chris Molaro, I'm co-founder and CEO of Things We Read. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that supports our veterans. Our whole mission is to enrich veterans' lives through reading, education, providing these resources for free. Essentially, we take every excuse out of the book, no pun intended, right? Books are expensive, we give them for free. There's a lot of books out there. We get great recommendations by people we would all look up to.
Why? Well, why'd you start this organization?
Great question. So I joke about it. I say I'm a born again reader because I hated reading. It was a chore. It was boring. It was arduous. It was something that your 10th grade English teacher made you do. Until I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week when we deployed to Iraq, because in Iraq there's not much else to do other than work out or read or get in trouble. So, and that book changed my life. I was really interested into it, and I shared it with a friend, and he got into it, and we started talking about it. And then I read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, and I loved it. And it just showed me that reading doesn't have to be a chore. If you find something that you're interested in, it's a truly enriching activity. Even in Iraq, it helps you get away from, mentally get away from the stresses of combat, dealing with PTSD and just the daily life over there. Speaking about getting away from stress, LeBron James publicly says he reads 1 to 2 hours before every game to get away from that stress of the media, the game time, and whatnot. So reading in general is just enriching, and we want to make sure that our soldiers and veterans are inspired to pursue that.
Yeah, so how do you pick the books that you put on your website?
I do nothing. I am never the smartest person in the room. It is the people that we look up to, those influential, interesting people, the speakers here at American Dream U. And we ask for their top 5 book recommendations. If you were to give top 5 books that have influenced you, made you who you are today, and then not only that, because anyone can post a book list online, but a personal reason of why they love that book. The mentality is a positive peer pressure mentality. I look up to Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban says, this is what you should read and this is why. I'm more now apt or interested to read that. As an example, one of Mark Cuban's recommendations is a book called Rework. And his personal reason, and he says this, he goes, if given the choice to hire somebody between having an MBA or reading Rework, I choose Rework every time. I'm going to Rework.
Yeah, and that's written by Jason Fried, who started 37 Signals, which has now, I
Absolutely.
believe, changed his name to Basecamp. Yeah, we've been in contact with him. He's awesome. It's a fantastic book. That's great. So how many books do you have on there right now? How many recommendations do you have?
It's tough to tell how many books because there are some duplicates, which is even more reason than want to read those. All right, Mark Cuban, Tim Ferriss, and Charlie Hohn all suggest, who's another American Dream U speaker, all suggest to read 4-Hour Work Week, right? So now I'm going to want to read 4-Hour Work Week. We have 44 book list contributors, each with 5 books. Some have more, plus or minus 1 book. So roughly, I'd say 500 books recommended on there. Not accounting for those doubles and triples.
Right, so where would someone get started? So I think we talked about a little bit today. So we're at Fort Hood, Texas today.
Yep.
We had a great event, amazing speakers. We're in our breakout session today on Saturday. And you can get overloaded by too much information.
Absolutely.
So how do you recommend someone get started in reading a book? Is it just picking that first one up and then taking action on it, or give us your thoughts on that?
Again, I think that reading changes from being a chore to an activity you want to pursue if it's something you're interested in. If I'm specifically here at American Dream U, if I want to start a business and I want to get involved in the startup industry, I want to pick up books dealing with that. I'm not going to want to read, a fiction thriller or novel or something like that. I want to read The $100 Startup, which is a Things Read recommended book, or Charlie Hohn's Recession-Proof Graduate, or a book that is entailed to that. And what we find a lot of times is once you start doing that, it's almost like this snowball effect. You read this book, and then that book, if you go on Amazon or on our site, that book is linked to another book, and you're like, wow, I love that book, now I'm going to give this book a try. And then you share it to a friend, and that friend loved the book, and then he has a recommendation for you. So it's almost this like infectious attitude of reading, but you have to be interested in it. I tell, I challenge soldiers all the time. Soldiers love to play video games. I like video games too. So most of their free time is spent playing video games rather than reading. Guys, there's books on how to make video games, how to play video games, the history of video games. I mean, whatever you're interested in, just pick up a book, read it, and I guarantee you it's going to grab your attention.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, and that's awesome. And so, so you've got all these great book recommendations on there. What do you think about listening to books? So I'm a big fan also of listening to audiobooks as well as some downloaded books. So what are your opinions on that?
So it's funny you say that. At first, I always thought it was like, I'm cheating. If I listen to an audiobook, oh, that's cheating. That's not really reading a book. And for my job right now, I travel a lot for the military, and I'm in the car a bunch. And obviously, for safety reasons, I can't be driving and reading. So I started listening to audiobooks, mostly using Audible, and it's awesome. I put it on 2 times the speed, so now you're reading double the pace, and it's like you get in this trance, and you really are taking the information in. I thought I would have issues kind of digesting what I was listening to, but you really don't. And you could rewind it if you have to, you could record it, you could highlight parts, and then you could also go online, and there's apps available that you could view the text of what you were listening to, which are awesome. We actually just launched Things We Read's first podcast, where we interview the book list contributors. And our first podcast was by the Platinum Award-winning artist, Five for Fighting, and who's a big runner. And he says, since he's a musician, he doesn't listen to music while he's running. He listens to audiobooks on his app while he's running.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing. I do 2 times, and then if I really get engaged in an audiobook, I will actually go out and buy the book, and then I'll read the book after I've listened to it.
Sure.
And it is like mind-blowing, because I capture so much more information. I got a highlighter,
Absolutely.
I fold over pages. So that's awesome. So reading. So what has that done for you, and when did you start this? I know, was it a year ago you read 4 Hour Workweek?
No, so it started, we officially became a 501c3 last year. But the whole idea, the concept started during our Iraq deployment in 2011. So really it started not because I wanted my soldiers to read. It started out of necessity, because we were in this combat zone, myself included, along with the soldiers, were dealing with these stresses. PTSD was on the rise. And my co-founder, Garrison Hanning, who's now the president of the organization, we looked at each other and says, there has to be a better way to deal with all this. There has to be, we have soldiers going through depression, divorcing their wives, saying they want to find something to help them out, but either just resorting to working out, and you can't work out 24 hours a day, sleeping, or getting in trouble. So really, out of necessity, we challenged them to pick up a book and read it. And we kind of got laughs at first. And this is in Iraq. Start reading. I've never read it. Like, come on. And what we did is we got these funny books. One of the books was Tucker Max's I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell.
Yeah.
I honestly never thought a book could make me laugh out loud. I never thought of reading as entertaining, right? It was work. That book made me laugh out loud. I wouldn't recommend trying to replicate the book or his exploitations, but it's a funny book. And gave that to the soldiers. I had Specialist Parker came up to me and said, "Sir, I've never read a book from start to finish until this one."
And it was Tucker's book?
Yeah,
I'll let Tucker know.
Yeah.
I spent some time with Tucker a few weeks ago, and he's a huge fan of the military. We're working on some projects together, and he writes very well-written, entertaining books.
Yeah.
Another good book, Forrest Griffin, is one of our speakers, and he's written a couple books, and they're laugh-out-loud books.
Absolutely.
I mean, laugh out loud. Forrest is just a great guy.
I'm gonna have to get that from you.
I'll get that from. I'm trying to blank
Yeah.
on his name. I mean, it's just the name of the book, but it's just a funny book. So you got all these business books
Sure.
and self-help books, and once in a while you just need to kind of.
Yeah, so what I started actually doing is, so now that I got my ball rolling and I found books that I'm interested in, I try to, I find that I can't read 2 nonfiction books at the same time because they start overlapping in my mind, but I'll read a fiction book and a nonfiction book at the same time, and I'll rotate. One day I'll read the nonfiction book, one day I'll read the fiction book, and they're very different writing styles that I could keep them separated in my mind and, get that break of, studying the business book, so to speak, and read I love the Dan Brown novel series, Da Vinci Code,
Right.
Angels and Demons, and then I'll pick up $100 Startup or Tim Ferriss's book. I just got done with 4 Hour Body, which was awesome.
Right, right. So what difference did you see when you were deployed and you had your soldiers start reading? What difference could you see, whether it was physical difference, mental difference, concentration? What did you see?
Well, so we live in these things in Iraq called chews. They're like little tent things that we live in, and as the platoon leader, I would go on and check on them and say, hey guys, like anything I can do to help you, or what's going on now? And it'd either be them just messing around, playing video games, or smoking, literally smoking and cigarettes and joking around, or acting depressed or sleeping. Then we started getting books out there, and I'd go around and I like peek my head in, and I'm not exaggerating, there'd be 3 of them laying on the cot, each reading a different book. I'm like, what's up, guys? We're like, oh, not much. I'm like, you want to talk about it? So we're reading. Can we talk later?
Right.
You got it, absolutely. So what we really saw is they were engaged in their personal development. I mean, look, we're all students for a lifetime, and that's what we want to show them. Like, we never stop learning, we never stop developing, and reading needs to be an integral part of that.
Yeah, there's a guy, Charlie Tremendous Jones. I don't know if you've heard that name before, but he was a public speaker, just a brilliant guy. He passed away, I think, about 8-10 years ago. I was in contact with his daughter, who's a veteran, and she's a big advocate of books. And his big things was, in 5 years, your life is going to be, and I'm screwing up the quote here, it's the books you read and the people you meet.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest difference, just
Sure.
those 2 things. And so reading books, and again, I've gotten...
Or listening to books.
Or listening
Yeah,
to books, right? In my opinion, it's the same thing. I've gotten to hang out with some amazing entrepreneurs, and they all have something in common. They're constantly learning.
Absolutely.
Constantly learning. And books is such an easy way. And even if you had to pay for a book, which you guys provide them for free,
Yep.
even if you had to pay $10, $12 for a book, that's nothing.
Absolutely.
Right? So how can people reach out and help you? Because these books obviously cost money. So how do you need support?
They do. So we're a 501c3, which means we're a tax-exempt organization, and any donations that come to us are eligible for tax deductions. And honestly, ounces make pounds. The smallest donation makes a difference and helps us. So if you believe in our cause and reading, you could go to thingsread.org, place a donation. Right now, we're in the midst of a competition called the Veteran Fundraising Challenge, sponsored by CrowdRise and Craig Connects, which is by Craig Newman. And essentially, if we raise the most money this month, he'll give us an additional $10,000, and that's going to buy a heck of a lot of books. We're very proud that we're a volunteer organization. Myself nor nobody on our team takes any salary whatsoever, so 100% of the money that comes in goes back to buying those books and distributing them to soldiers internationally. I mean, we send books to soldiers that are deployed and home at bases like Fort Hood. You could also like us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/thingsweread, and follow us on Twitter @thingsweread. Every Monday we release Book List Monday, is what we call it, and you could see other books, share it with soldiers, friends. Here shortly we're going to have the capability online to buy the books online, and then to send in proof that you're a soldier, active duty soldier, and then just opt to get those books sent to you for free.
Wow, that's awesome. So when does this contest end? Because we need to get this information out quickly. When does it end?
July 2nd.
July 2nd.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we have a slow start right now, so we need to amp it
All right,
up.
so we'll get this edited, we'll put it up. I want you to post on our Facebook page.
I will.
And then we'll get it out to our contacts as well, because it's so important, and it seems very slight, right? I mean, just reading a book.
Yeah.
But obviously reading a book changed your life. I mean, it's...
It really has.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we'll get this to Tim.
Yeah.
We'll get this over to Tim Ferriss, because he'd be thrilled to hear that it's made such an impact.
Well, I mean, Things We Read, it was all started by his concept of the muse. So read 4 Hour Work Week, and he talks about this muse, right? The business that is self-sustaining and changes the way you live your life, because you're not tied down to a corporate job anymore, or to a bureaucracy anymore. And so Things Read kind of started with the model, ironically. So it was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, so what can we do? What can American Dream you do to help? And then all the people that are both watching this and listening, what can we do to help you?
Well, I mean, look, first of all, I love American Dream. I came a couple of months ago when you were initially at Fort Hood. I get all your email updates, and I've read books that Charlie Hohn has written, who's a speaker, and then other speakers have recommended, and I've enjoyed this talking today. Bottom line is American Dream has so much good content. The amount of awesome speakers you have. I was upset. I missed Tim last time. Like I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan, and I would have loved to meet him. But the amazing amount of content that you have, quality content too, not just quantity, is incredible. And if we could get those book recommendations from those providers with personal reasons why to make it more intimate for the soldier, and then help us with, I think, the distribution of them. Not necessarily the physical book distribution, but e-book distribution. I mean, iPads and Kindles are the way of the future, and I think it's a lot more scalable. If click of a button, you could send out 1,000 ebooks as opposed to having to mail 1,000 hard copies.
Yeah, and so we'll reach out to our speakers and definitely get their top 5 book recommendations as well as why they recommend them. And then we want to get this out to publishers as well, because let's be honest, it doesn't cost much to give out a Kindle version of a book, and it's not like we're just giving it out to general public. We're giving these to soldiers, to Marines, sailors, airmen, Coast Guardsmen. And is this program available for spouses as well?
It is. So the whole Things Read mantra is that we've developed the Soldier Scholar and the Citizen Scholar and want to bridge that civil-military divide through education. I mean, look, there's no better connection than me and really enjoying a book and giving it to you and saying, like, you got to read this, and then you coming back to me, that was awesome, like, you want to talk about that concept that we just read? It's really an enriching activity for me, but for our relationship. And so we feel like it brings families closer together. A family that reads together stays together. And if you get a wife or husband to buy into it as well, start reading to kids. We have a partnership with an organization called First Book, who donates K through 12 children level books to schools around the country, and now they started focusing on military communities like Killeen or Lawton, Oklahoma, to support us as well.
That's awesome, yeah, because 20, 25 years ago, I'm an old guy, right? I'm in my mid-40s, and you're a young guy.
You don't look it.
Yeah, well, thank you. We didn't have as many distractions as we had back then.
Right.
And now there's so many distractions. I mean, I go to restaurants, I go out. I mean, these kids have their cell phone or their iPad in front of them playing games.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, and there's now studies coming out of what the effects of that are going to have. So, if you're watching or listening to this, get a book in front of your kids. Say, hey, listen, we want you to read an hour before you can have your face in front of an iPad for an hour. And the value of that, and then you'll probably start seeing some shifts. And I think you saw that with the soldiers in Iraq.
I saw it with myself, yeah.
With
absolutely.
yourself, right? That they're shifting from hours in front of a game, right, to now hours in front of books. So really important, and I think your message is awesome. And there's so many great books out there that we could never get to all of them.
It's really frustrating, actually. I want to read all of them, and I can't.
Right. And you drove 6 hours each way to be here, which is awesome. It shows your commitment to get the word out and to share with all the folks. So, any other last messages you wanna share with the folks?
We're talking about distractions and everything, and it's just funny because it popped in my head. I'm reading a book right now called Becoming the Top 1%. It means how to optimize your life and becoming the differentiator in your life to become the best in the world, or the top 1%. And he talks about getting rid of those distractions. And one specific example he mentions is Chrome. The Chromebook has a extension on it that allows you to, for certain times of the day, block certain websites. So I have in the morning from 6 to 10, and then at night from 5 to, I think, midnight. I have Facebook blocked, Twitter blocked. So I'll type it in just out of habit, and then it will. Shouldn't you be working? Pops up.
And what is it? It's based off of Google Chrome.
Google Chrome, an extension. I forget the extension name. I could get that.
Yeah, we'll get that. We'll put that on there.
Yeah.
And there's another program called Rescue Time. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
But it'll track how much time you spend on social media and anything you plug it in there. And
I'm scared to see the results.
Right. And people are like, oh, I don't spend any time. And then at the end of the day, they look like, oh, shit, I just spent 97% of my time on stuff, right? Because
Right.
when you get to Facebook, we talked about this earlier today with some of the speakers, it just takes you in a million different directions.
You get lost. Yeah.
Totally lost. And
Right.
it's like, and let's be honest, who really cares, right?
Well, like anything else, I think that if utilized properly, it could be a tool to enhance your life. But myself included, you just abuse it and you get lost and then de-optimize yourself.
Yeah, and then 45 minutes later, like, oh my gosh, I'm on Facebook.
Right. Right.
Which is not valuable use of your time. But if used properly, whether it's for your business or networking, whatever, those are great things. So listen, I'm totally impressed with what you're doing. I mean, this is awesome.
Same with American Dream.
Well, yeah, and so we obviously want to support you. So on the bottom of the screen here, we'll have your links where we can support you. We want to get this out quickly, so we'll get the team to edit this very quickly. It probably won't be the most professional edited thing. We just want to get it out, push it off for your contest. So make sure you post on American Dream U. We'll get it out to our list to support that.
I don't know if you've been saying, I every so often, if there's a good quote by a speaker or a book recommendation, I've been tweeting it out.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, someone keeps favoriting it. I don't know if it's...
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And we want to do the same for you. So
Right.
we're following this guy, right? Awesome. So we'll get that going, and this is great. And so we want to have you come back out and speak at our next event.
That'd be awesome.
If that works for you. I know you're where are you stationed at right now?
Fort Sill in Oklahoma, which is 6 hours north of here. I'm moving to Philly to start my MBA at Wharton in August, but I could fly back down.
Yeah, and we're at Fort Drum this fall. We're at Fort Bragg.
Yeah, that's an easy drive.
That's an easy drive. So real quick, so why Wharton? And why your master's?
Right. So again, I always think of myself as a student of life, right? I never want to stop learning and growing, looking for that next challenge. Wharton has a pretty renowned entrepreneurship program, and I get it, entrepreneurship is just jumping in and doing it and getting that next step, but also going back to the people you meet, books you read, philosophy. I wouldn't be where I am today without the mentors I have and the relationships I've built. So I'm hoping to build on those relationships and meet maybe the next co-founder of my company at Wharton.
Yeah, there's a lot of great, I'm drawing a blank on the eyeglass company. I met some guys, I believe they were from Wharton or from Penn, and they all got together at school and they started this amazing company. And so that's great. I mean, the network and the alumni from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is awesome. Really appreciate it. This is great.
Thanks, Phil.
We'll
Thanks for
reach out.
having me.
Yeah, we'll reach out, and Jess on our team will reach out to our speakers. We'll get those lists of those books, and let's work on some of those publishers too, because I think they would buy into this.
If we could partner and do the ebook distribution, I think that's like where the scalability is.
Yeah, and we just had a great speaker yesterday named Greg Reed, who's written over, I think, 40 books.
Wow.
3 Feet from Gold, Stickability. Yeah. He works with the Napoleon Hill Foundation, which I'm sure Think and Grow Rich is probably on
That's
your
been
list.
recommended, yeah. I forget who recommended it, but
it's a phenomenal book. Have you read Think and Grow Rich?
I have not.
Oh, you have to read it.
Okay.
That's my recommendation.
See,
that's my recommendation to you.
I'm going to go read it now.
Right.
And that's because that positive peer pressure.
Right. And another great one, too, that was mentioned a couple times today is a book called The Essentialism by Greg McEwen.
That's
who
right.
spoke. Phenomenal book. I mean, there's so many. I mean, you and I could probably sit here for a couple hours and talk about the great books. Yeah. And I'm sure you got them loaded up for your 6-hour drive.
I'm telling you, it's frustrating because you're like, oh, this is great, but I want to read this. I'm reading right now. I'm listening to an audiobook. Nicholas Tassim Talib's Black Swan. It's about these unforeseen events that you can't predict and how they negatively or positively affect your outcomes, and how you need to kind of unplanned planning, if that makes any sense,
right.
So that you can be flexible enough to address the unknowns occurring.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Awesome. Hey, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
All right, you got it. Take care.
It.